So the latest buzzword I keep hearing when I watch TV, watch YouTube videos, read magazines, is ground force. Of course, ground force, it requires force plates, like in a lab setting, to be able to measure how much force I'm putting into the ground. Now, of course, the more force we can put into the ground, especially through the front foot in the downswing, hopefully the faster we'll be able to turn, deliver the club, and the faster we'll be able to swing, the farther we'll be able to drive the ball. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to hack your ground forces so you can increase them, really smash the ball out there a long way. Watch all the way till the end. All right, so hey, I know there's not a lot of these around anymore, but remember those manual scales if you're old enough. Before we had a digital scale, you had a manual scale. It had a little wheel. You stood on it, and of course it wrapped around and probably went 20 pounds more than you wanted to, but then you'd get your number in the dial, and it would send it kind of oscillate back and forth and then settle on a number, and then you'd know how much you weighed. Well, interestingly, you could change that weight by moving around on the scale. So for example, you could flex your knees really abruptly and then stand back up again. And as you flexed your knees and allowed yourself to drop towards the ground, you would see that you would become relatively weightless. But then as you came out of your fall and you started to slow down the fall, in other words, start to impart an upwards vertical acceleration to combat your downwards velocity, well, all of a sudden you got really, really heavy. If you could do it hard enough, you could almost double your weight on that scale. You could make it spin all the way around way past 300. Now, of course, you could also jump off and land and flex the knees, then pop back up again, and you could really turbocharge the scale, maybe almost to 500 or 600 pounds if you did it strong enough. Now, this is the same way you can hack into your ground forces and use them to your advantage when you swing a golf club. The pattern that you saw on the scale was simply raise the center of gravity, start tall, or even jump off the ground, increasing the height of your center of mass. And then you would drop the center of mass to a low and then quickly return back to the high again. So high, low, high, as bursty as you can do it, and that imparts the most amount of vertical ground forces. All right, so now how do you apply that to the golf swing? Well, by using movements at the knees and the hips and the pelvis, you can actually repeat this high, low, high pattern that you do when jumping on the scale. And this will do the same thing with the force into the ground you apply, and that'll help you swing faster. So how are you going to get high? Well, the best way to get your center of mass high would be to make sure that you do not leave a lot of flex in this knee going back, because that's going to keep your center of mass low. But instead, you want to start to extend this knee, not to the point of becoming locked, but becoming straight. Now that's going to make this leg taller. Now if I can send my center of mass kind of into that leg, I can actually cause my center of mass to get higher. I'm also putting this foot, raising this foot off the ground. So this is as close as you can get without your front foot leaving the ground, as a baseball pitcher winding up into a very tall position at the top of their windup, something like this. What they're doing there is they're hacking their ground forces for the fastest fastball by raising the center of mass and sending the center of mass as far away from the batter as they can get. So something like this, I've got all my body weight on top of my right foot or even on the other side, and I can spring down the mound and really, really plant that foot extremely hard, creating a lot of rotational force. Now, once you've reached this high position, here. Now we've got to get the low position. Now sometimes known as the Sneed squat or the Nicholas squat, but you're going to go from flexed left knee, straight right knee, and you're going to step down onto the left heel and end up with both knees at their maximum flexion during a swing like this. Now at the same time, you've also got to use your pelvis by actually maintaining its depth or pushing it back a little bit. So tall and drop, tall and drop. So you're dropping everything into the ground, so your knees will be their most flexed, and hopefully your rump is sticking out more than it did even at the top of the swing, like that. So I got a lot of force through both feet into the ground. Now, the last thing I do, because remember, dropping does not give you ground force. Falling makes you weightless. It is slowing out of the fall and reversing it to where your center of gravity starts to slow and then rise again. That's what makes the force go into the ground. So you're going to repeat the high point that you did on the backswing, straight right knee, shift the pelvis into that hip, into that foot, getting me very tall, dropping it, and now reversing out of it by straightening the left knee, putting the right knee into a bent position and swinging the pelvis over, effectively raising your center of mass this way. That helps you go high, low, high. And if you can move in that manner, you're going to produce the most amount of ground force possible, other than actually picking this foot up and trying to swing like a baseball pitcher does. And potentially, if you coordinate that action, you might be able to squeeze out even more distance, like some long drivers are trying to do right now. All right, let me see if I can demonstrate for you that high, low, high center of mass concept using my knees and my ankles and my hips like this to raise, drop, raise again. But because I generated such a high amount of ground force, you really didn't feel like I was swinging all that hard. I just moved high to low to high again, almost like swinging in a pendulum. And it really helped me turn and get a lot of club head speed, despite the fact that I felt quite relaxed. All right, so hopefully I've unveiled a bit of the mystery behind this strange term that keeps floating around called ground forces. Remember, you're just simply manipulating by movement the knees, the ankles, the pelvis, and the hips. And by positioning them, of course, it takes ground force to position them. So you're kind of backwards hacking in to the ground forces simply by intending to position and move these joints from high to low to high again. Also assisting in this is that lateral motion away from the batter and towards the batter as we go high, low, high. And then you're really, really going to get heavy halfway down into your swing, get a lot more distance and speed. All right, I'm gonna go back to working on this a little bit more because it's feeling fun. But hey, thanks for watching. I'm Steve, and as usual, I'll either see you in the next video or I'll see you longer and straighter down the fairway. Everybody take good care.